Hey everyone, this is Aaron from ERIN'S and today I'm going to review the Kenwood DMX1057XR Excelon reference head unit. This head unit features a 10.1-inch floating display, Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, and a couple other features that we'll go over in this video. So right off the bat, let me go ahead and say that this video is not an unpacking, an unboxing. This video is not showing you how to install this head unit. And this video won't cover all of the features. I want everybody to know that up front so people aren't upset. If you're looking for those kind of things, 5-star car stereo has a few videos which I will throw into my description below. I think they do a great job of providing you with all of that kind of overall information. This video is more focused on the sound quality aspects of the head unit. Some of the things that I'm going to discover, or some of the things that I'm going to talk over today, are going to be the maximum unclipped volume output or voltage output, and we're going to talk about the three-way capability of this head unit, such as being able to run tweeter, mid-range, and subwoofer off the head unit directly as opposed to needing a separate DSP. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, this video is for you. Stay tuned and let's do this. When a new high-end head unit comes out, almost everyone asks the same question. What is the maximum voltage output that I can get that is clean without clipping? You want to know that so you can provide a high voltage signal to your amplifiers or your DSP that are downstream, and I get it. First test I'm going to do is a 40 hertz test. This is coming out of the subwoofer pre-outs going into this oscilloscope, and I've got another RCA connected to the voltmeter here, which is a True Volt RMS voltmeter. So what you can see here, 40 hertz signal looks quite good, and just to show you that's what I'm actually playing, I'm going to go back to CarPlay. 40 hertz 0 dB. So we're going to go to the audio settings here, and I'm going to show you that the subwoofer gain is set to 0. Okay, I'm going to turn the volume down just a little bit, and then I'm going to turn it back up. So I've maxed it out at 40. So at 40 I've got about 4.3 volts RMS, good clean signal there. So you're thinking, okay, well what happens if I bump this up? So if I go +1 on the subwoofer output, 4.82, and the signal actually still looks pretty clean. So what happens if I bump it up to 2? Now I've squared it off. So I've chopped it off and it's at 5.3, and yeah, so that's no bueno. The actual voltage output for the Kenwood is rated at 5 volts RMS. So my guess is that if I were able to hit that 5 volt value somewhere around here, like if there were a 1.5, then yeah, it would probably hit 5 volt RMS. But it's interesting to note that when you're at 0 on the subwoofer pre-out level, you get 4.3 clean signal. If you bump it up to 1, you get 4.8 still clean signal. So my recommendation is to simply, when you get the head unit, turn the subwoofer level up to +1, and that'll get you a little bit more voltage coming out from the pre-outs. Alright, so now I'm playing a 1 kilohertz tone through this, and let's see what it looks like. So again, 1 kilohertz tone, this is running out of the front pre-outs of this Kenwood head unit. And I'm going to dial this in to get the waveform to sit still for a second. And again, max volume, maxed out 40 out of 40, gets me 4.720 volts. So it's interesting to note then that the maximum front pre-out is 4.72 volts, but the subwoofer maximum voltage out with the 40 hertz tone is, what did I say, 4.3 volts. And then if you bump the subwoofer pre-out gain up to +1, that gets you about 4.8 volts. So it's interesting to note that the subwoofer gain is actually a little bit lower in voltage in its default state. So keep that in mind. Again, I would recommend bumping up that subwoofer gain to +1 if you're going to use this head unit. And now I'm going to test the RCA rear outputs. Okay, now we've got the rear outputs, same thing, same signal, everything looks good, 4.724 volts RMS. So the front and the rear outputs are providing the same signal at least 1 kilohertz, and yeah, we're good to go. Now another thing that's kind of interesting to play with is the source level volume, and that can be found in the settings, which I will go to. So if we go to EQ, volume offset, sound effects. So let's go to volume offset, and let's change the app iPod to +1. Now by doing that, I boost the output voltage, and it's 5.6, but it's clipped. So let's now take the actual volume and bring it down a little bit, okay? So it's still clipped at 39, bring it down to 38, it's 4.72, and the signal still looks clean. So by boosting the output to, or the iPod output to +1 for the actual source offset, I have to turn the volume down to 38 to get a good clean signal, but that voltage output is still the same at 4.72. In other words, changing these won't help you get more voltage or more clean voltage. It'll boost the voltage, yes, but it won't actually provide you with any additional clean voltage. So don't worry about trying to boost these guys to get additional clean voltage. It's not going to help. So just to recap, the subwoofer pre-outs, good to about 4.3 at 40 out of 40 on the volume, but bumping the subwoofer pre-out to +1 in the audio settings will get you to 4.8 volts RMS, and that's still clean. So I would advise doing that. The rear and the front RCA pre-outs provide about 4.72 volt RMS or so, and that is 40 out of 40 on the volume, and that is clean. Trying to do anything to bump that up by setting the source level volumes higher or lower and then messing with the actual volume isn't going to help you at all. So don't waste your time doing that. Another feature that a lot of SQ people might be interested about this head unit is its three-way active capability. So let's look at that. In order to get into the three-way mode, you have to first go to standby, which you can do by going here. And then you hold this little button down as you press the home button at the same time. So now you're prompted, do you want to go in three-way mode? You may blow up your speakers. Yes, I do, because luckily I don't have anything connected right now. Yes, I am absolutely sure. So now that I'm in three-way mode, I go to the settings, I go to the audio, and now you'll get in here and you'll notice that I'm actually not able to change anything. The reason why that is actually pretty simple, and I'm telling you guys because you may have had trouble with it like I did. So you just simply go and turn on a source. I'm going to go to CarPlay because that's what I had before. It doesn't really matter. Now I can go to speaker crossover. Now you've got access to high pass, band pass, and low pass. Now the interesting thing about this is you would think, most of you are probably like me, where you would think that high pass is going to be your front pre-outs, band pass is going to be your rear pre-outs, low pass is going to be your subwoofer pre-out. You would be wrong. And I found this out the hard way. I didn't read the manual. If you go to high pass, that is actually your rear pre-out. Band pass is your front pre-out. So your tweeters will need to be on the rear pre-out. And I'll show an example of what I mean here. So now that we've talked about that, let's go through and look at high pass. Now, these things right here, this car type and medium speaker channel stuff, none of that matters. All this does is just change defaults over here. So if you're going to set it up yourself, you don't have to worry about that. We're going to go to high pass. We're going to say, I want my high pass, my tweeters, to be crossed over, let's say 2.5 kilohertz. Not necessarily important, but let's look at what the options are. So you have, for high pass, first of all, your slope. You can change between -12 dB per octave, 18, or 24 dB per octave. Now, you can start with 250 hertz. So that would be good for if you have like a wide band, maybe, you have a full range mid type speaker. 300 hertz would be the next step. Then you jump up to 1 kilohertz, 1.6, then 2.5, 4, 5, 6.3, 8, and 10, and 12.5. I'm not sure who in the world would use a signal that high up, but I guess I don't know. I don't know who would use a high pass filter that high, but whatever, it's there if you want it. And then also you got the gain, which you can attenuate, and it's in full 1 dB increments. That would probably be okay for most people, although when you start getting into the real nitty-gritty of tuning, you're going to want that half dB per step second or option. Now that we've looked at what would most likely be the tweeter channel. We're going to go to the bandpass channel, which is most likely going to be somebody's 6.5-inch woofer in a two-way active crossover setup. And you have the option for high pass frequency. Right now it's set to through, which is just everything goes through it. You can go 50 hertz, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 120, 150, 180, 220, goodness, that was tough to say, 250, 300, and then you're capped out there. So basically you can go from, whatever to 300 hertz for a high pass. On the low pass end of things, so your maximum frequency, you can go up to 8 kilohertz, or you can go full range. 8 kilohertz, and then you can step down in 1/3 octave steps to, you go to 1 kilohertz, and then you jump to 300 hertz, 250. So that's interesting. So I could see this channel being able to not only allow you to do a 6.5-inch, but also again, you could use just a mid bass on this channel, and then on the high pass channel you could use it for a full range. So they've actually kind of thought of most two-way active front stage type setups. Again, you don't have the full gamut of being able to choose your exact frequency, but they've given you enough options here to reasonably get started in a two-way active setup. So I think that's kind of neat. And I will also note the phase inversion up here where you can flip phase. Now that doesn't seem to be for single channel. If there's an option for that, I'm not quite aware of that yet. I think these are per both channels, okay? Now we're going to go to low pass, which is most likely going to be your subwoofer output. And you can go through, so full range, or you can go 150, 120, 100, 90, 80, 70, usually around here is where most people stop. Go down to 60, 50, 40, 30. Okay. Slope 12, 18, 24 again. Gain, -1 steps down to -8 dB. And that's it. Now that you've seen the demonstration on how to set up your crossover in the three-way networking mode, here's an image of what the tweeter options are. Now these are all using 24 dB per octave slopes, but you can see the different points of crossovers. Again, it's the same thing that I showed you previously. It's just a visual representation. Now here is the front channel, the one that you could use to set up for your mid-woofer in a two-way type setup. Again, showing you the different crossover options, all 24 dB per octave slopes shown in this particular example. And now here is the subwoofer channel. So between what I've shown you in this demonstration and the graphics, hopefully that gives you a good idea of what you're capable of doing with this head unit in terms of three-way active mode, which really is just most likely going to be two-way active up front with the subwoofer in the back. For those of you with all of your SQ music on an external drive, like I have, you might want to know how long does it take to load my music. So I'm going to try to give you a demonstration of that. Now this drive is 2 terabytes and it's not quite full, but it's probably pretty close. It's got all sorts of types of music on there. I should say all formats of music. DSD, FLAC, probably some MP3s as well. So it's got a little bit of everything in terms of formats. High res, high res audio. And let's plug it up, see how long it takes for this thing to recognize it. Now, I have not plugged this into this, or my USB drive into this head unit at all, not one time. So this is literally the first time. And let's go to the USB input. My drive is spinning up. And it's already playing. Yeah. So that's pretty quick. Now, let's see, top allows me to scroll. I'm just going to go somewhere toward the bottom here. Hey, Janet Jackson. All right, Busta Rhymes. Yeah, it finds that pretty quickly. Well, that's pretty nice. Now let's look at a couple more features here. Folder up, folder down. Hey, that's pretty sweet, and that's pretty fast too. Okay, close that back. And then over here allows you to scroll through the different songs. This version of Alanis Morissette CD is crazy long. It's all sorts of like demo versions of songs and whatnot. So, but whatever. Go back to top, yeah, and you can kind of flip through your list pretty quickly. So I'm actually pretty happy with how fast this recognizes my drive, gets all my music ready to go, and allows me to start flipping through them pretty quickly. So I'm going to plug back in my iPhone. And play around with CarPlay for a second, which actually brings up one important factor about this head unit that I don't like, is that my DDX1056 or 5 or whatever it is has 2 USB inputs. One is dedicated for CarPlay, which I keep my phone plugged in almost all the time when I'm in my car. And then the other one is dedicated for my USB drive, which is always plugged in. This head unit only comes with one USB slot, just one. So you got to decide, do I want to listen to my USB music today, or do I want to plug my phone in today? And let's say you want to rock CarPlay or Android Auto while you're driving for maps, while you're listening to USB music. I do that all the time with my current DDX9906. Can't do that with this anymore. That sucks. And that actually, for me, could actually be a deal breaker. It could be a deal breaker for some of you other guys as well. Now, I've been listening to my USB drive a little bit less. I've actually been listening to podcasts probably like 90% of the time, which is really ironic, but whatever. But yeah, that's something very important to note. Luckily, though, it does have an auxiliary input, and most people don't use that anymore. But that's important if you want to use like REW, Room EQ Wizard, to generate pink noise or test signals to measure your car's output, do RTA work, stuff like that. So that's good. Otherwise, you'd have to burn a disc, and you'd be stuck with only an RTA measurement instead of a impulse-based measurement. So it's good that they still have at least that. But yeah, only having one USB sucks. I don't like that. Kenwood, why? Why wouldn't you give us 2? There's plenty of freaking room here, man. 2, at least 2, come on. Anyway, so let's flip over to CarPlay. Because hey, at least we got CarPlay, right? 40 hertz, yeah, man, that's awesome. And then here's my music. I do really like the large screen here. Obviously, that's really nice to have, but I'm not sure how well this is going to work in my car, so I'll have to find out. The volume knob, that's cool. And along those same lines, it's also worth noting that a lot of people have asked, a lot of my friends, you guys out there, have asked, does this thing have optical? And if it does not, are there going to be other ones that will? The answer is, it does not have optical, and I have no idea if there will be other ones that will. Personally, I don't really care if it has optical or not. I know that, I think the Stinger, I believe that the Stinger does have variable optical control, which means that you have digital output straight into your DSP or whatever, and you can actually control the volume from the head unit itself. I don't know if you're chopping bits there. I know that that's been a concern in the past, is that you're chopping bits. I just don't know if that's a concern with newer stuff now, so I can't say. But personally, I'm not bothered at all actually by not having digital volume or digital signal routed straight to my DSP. I haven't used digital signal to my DSP in like 7 or 8 years probably. Analog does just fine for me, no noise issues, so I'm completely okay with it not having that. But for those wondering, no, it does not have that. For me and for the majority of the people watching this video, all my SQ friends and whatnot, you're going to care more about the voltage output. There's plenty of voltage, clean voltage output. The signal is good as far as I can tell. And you have the option and the luxury of going 3-way active, or really 2-way front stage active, with this head unit directly, which I think is a good intro. So overall, I do like the head unit itself. I think it's really neat having a huge tablet style display, but frankly, I don't know if it's going to look stupid when I put it in my car. And I guess I'll have to make a second video about my kind of trials and tribulations with that. But for now, I just wanted this to be an introduction to this thing, to kind of answer some questions about the sound quality side of things. As far as how it sounds, I don't know yet. Haven't plugged it in the car. I'm probably not going to think it sounds bad. I can't imagine that I would. They would have to really hose something up in the signal to do that. I would think, and at least hope, that it sounds at least as good as the head unit that I'm using in my car right now. And If so, then I'm going to be more than satisfied with this. So there you go. There's some basic stuff, and I appreciate you guys watching. Take care. Peace.